Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, editor of ForbesWomen. The FDA has approved the nation's first ever at-home cervical cancer screening. Joining us now is the founder and CEO of the company producing that screening. That company is Teal Health, and that founder CEO is Cara Egan. Cara, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a very busy time for you since the FDA came out with this approval.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So let's start with this announcement. What exactly does it mean?
Yeah, so women today are supposed to be screened for cervical cancer. We often call it the pap smear, but as every woman knows, it's not a comfortable or easy thing to do. It's hard to find a doctor's appointment. The actual procedure is uncomfortable. And so now with the FDA approval, we're able to take that exact same cancer screening, but now do it from home using the Teal wand. And so now a woman can collect comfortably and privately from home running on the same sample with the same accuracy. Same test with the same accuracy.
Same test, same accuracy. How long did it take to get this approval? What was the process for you and for your colleagues at Teal?
Yeah, so it has been a journey, but mostly in terms of trying to get it perfect, right? So at Teal, we really think about all of the experiences of a woman. So this was really important to not only be comfortable and collect an adequate sample, but give a woman confidence that she could do it. So we redesigned the whole product working with IDEO, which is the leading human-centered design company. And so that whole process took about a year where we really perfected and made sure that it worked. Then we almost took another full year to make sure that, again, it was collecting an adequate sample, what was the processing at the lab before we headed into the FDA clinical trial. The clinical trial itself was a 16-site nationwide study, the largest of its kind in the US. And what was actually really cool about the clinical trial is that one actually went quite quickly. So we kicked off the trial in November of 23 and finished enrolling in under 6 months, which was ahead of schedule and oversubscribed. And I think a big part of that was we had women raising their hands to be a part of this study. So anecdotally, 80% of women said yes to being part of the study. So from there, we finished the study, reviewed the results. The results were so exceptional that we received something called the FDA Breakthrough Device Designation, which allowed us to be on the fast track through the FDA. So I would say all in, it took about 5 years to bring this product to market, but there were definitely aspects that actually went quite fast compared to other clinical trials.
So you have the device there with you. How exactly does it work and how foolproof is it? Because I have to say, as someone who can be a little hypochondriac, I feel like I don't know if I would trust myself to give myself a screening that is ultimately used to determine if I have HPV or something that could cause cervical cancer.
Absolutely. And I think this is what the FDA study is so important for, right? Making sure that women have the confidence that if they did it at home, they're going to get the same accuracy as if they had gone into the doctor. So the way it works is it's designed very similar to a tampon. It is designed for all body types. So for some, it might go on only about 2 inches. For others, it might go the whole way. You insert it, again, similar to a tampon, and then you extend the soft sponge. All you have to do is rotate 10 times. So again, as far as being foolproof, it's pretty foolproof. Then you just slide it back out and then you take the sponge off actually and mail that to the lab. In our clinical trial, 98% of women were able to collect an adequate sample. So when we say that this was designed to give a woman comfort and confidence, it really is. The other nice part is even if you did not collect an adequate sample, this test we use is called the Roche Cobas HPV test. And it's a primary HPV test that's on all the leading guidelines. And it has an internal check. So if you did not collect enough sample, you would just get an invalid. You wouldn't get a false positive or a false negative. So what would happen in that rare case is we would just send you another kit to collect. And so again, 98% of women could collect comfortably. 97% said it was easy or very easy to use. And then for anyone that wasn't, you know that you would just get an invalid.
So as you talk about the clinical study, the 80% anecdotal yes rate, the 98% who said it's easy, what are the other figures that stood out to you and stood out to the FDA in terms of efficacy that our audience should know and understand?
Yeah, so for us, there's kind of 2 parts. One, does it work, right? And so that's kind of like the safety and efficacy that the FDA cares about. The other part is, will women use it, right? So to answer the first, the study results that are so great is that we had the same accuracy as the doctor collected samples. So we had a 96% accuracy, which is really best in class. Can't really beat that. So that was fantastic. And we matched the doctor exactly with that 96%. So that was kind of the first piece. Does it work? Yes. And then the second is, do women want it? And so 94% of women in our clinical trial said that they prefer this to the standard of care. So I think that's kind of the resounding, yes, women want this. And like, we have the data to show that they can now trust it and confidently take their sample at home.
So it's been part of an FDA clinical study. When will it be commercially or mass market available?
Yeah. So we've been working hard at this for 5 years for the clinical trial, but we've also been building the whole entire solution. So the way it works for Teal is you would come to the Teal website, you would request a kit. You'll meet with a Teal medical practice provider who will review your eligibility, explain how it works, and then write the prescription for the device, as well as order the assay at the lab. Once you do that, the kit will come at home. You'll collect comfortably. Again, in addition to the 98% collecting a sample, 97% saying it was easy. On average, it takes less than 5 minutes, right? So you quickly collect your sample, then mail it back to the lab and all the prepackaged material that's sent to you, envelope that's sent to you. It's then processed at the lab, and then the results come back to Teal. And we review the results with the clinician, and then they release them to you. If you had an abnormal result, you would speak with a clinician at that point as well via telehealth, and we would explain your next steps. Like, this would be the same as if it was in a doctor's office, right? There are next steps for people. It's a triage, right? It's a screening that leads to a triage. And so for that, we would refer you into your in-person triage. And so all of this is built, right? So we've been eagerly waiting this day. And so we have amazing clinicians lined up. We have a full platform built end to end, and we're planning on launching in June. So just like less than a month away, women starting in California will be able to get the Teal wand.
So you're starting in California, and then we'll have to go state by state, I imagine, given state regulations.
Yeah. So for us, it's really important that this is covered by insurance. And so we started in California, both because this is where we are, but also it allowed us to start to get in network. So we're already in network with Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, and United inside California. And so that's really important. We're also speaking to national providers about rolling it out for their entire member base nationally. And so that's really what's going to accelerate the path into other states. Once we have national coverage, it just makes it easier for us to make sure everyone can access it.
As I think about patient populations who might need to access this, and I know you've spoken to the press about populations that don't go for their annual OBGYN visit and so aren't getting these screenings, I'm wondering about folks who may not have insurance through work or on Medicaid. So is Medicaid part of the coverage options for Teal?
Yes, we are working to get into Medicaid in California and other states as well. We are already in network with Medicare, which is the first step towards getting Medicaid. But the interesting thing, back to what came out of the study, is while there are definitely populations that are less likely to be screened, so of course uninsured are 40% less likely to be on top of their screening, what we found is it was near universal. 1 in 4 women are behind in their screening. So we mapped really, really closely to the US demographics across race, ethnicity, income, education, type of insurance, where you're located. And it did not matter who you were or how you slice that data. 1 in 4 women were behind on their screening. So even if you had employer-based insurance, 1 in 4 women were behind on their screening. It was rather shocking, but not surprising when you think about what makes it hard to get a screening, right? It's, can you find a doctor that's available? And, do you have time in your day? And the reality is everyone feels those 2 pain points.
That's interesting. How do OBGYNs feel about this as an option? Because I know that my own uses an annual physical, or, hey, you need to renew your birth control prescription, so come on in and let's do it all at once, as kind of the carrot here. Are they open to patients doing this at home?
Yeah. I mean, every single doctor wants to make sure women have access to cervical cancer screenings. As I mentioned in the beginning, their main concern was just, does it work as well, right? And so that's the really nice part about our clinical trial. It does. It has the same accuracy. What we're actually finding, as you mentioned, there's other things that are happening in that doctor's visit, right? While people might be thinking to come in because of the cervical cancer screening, what this now allows the doctor to do is have more time for those visits or for those other conversations that they would be having. So this is not to replace your relationship with your doctor. It's just to give women a better way to screen, right? And so those two are not at odds with each other. Everyone wants to make sure women are screened. Back to point 1 and 4 are behind. It's an entirely preventable cancer. Every doctor wants better ways. This is about more care.
Zooming out, you mentioned this has been 5 years in the making, and you are not just the CEO, but the founder of this business. What gave you the initial idea for Teal Health?
Yeah. So I'm a CEO and co-founder. And so what gave me the idea is a combination. It's actually the combination of the two of us. So I've always been super passionate about women's health and using kind of best modern practices to reach a woman where she is, right? So my background is I used to be a health tech investor, and then I worked at a couple different tech companies, and then was a software investor as well. And so healthcare just can learn a lot from all of these industries and how they're reaching out to their patients and how they're communicating and how they're engaging. And that can range from using really modern technology, like text, email, things like that, but also how we brand and communicate with people, right? So speaking to a woman in a way that she feels seen and understood, like we care about everything, like our box. We researched like the first words that welcome you into the box and how it made a woman feel. So all of this branding and stuff can kind of really reach women better through healthcare. And then, as I think we mentioned in the beginning, one of the biggest pain points for women is the cervical cancer screening, right? And nobody enjoys the current way. And so it's a really beautiful moment to kind of bring the cervical cancer screening and telehealth together. And so I kind of came with the telehealth piece, and my co-founder came with the initial prototype of a self-collection device.
So what's next? Obviously, rolling out in California and eventually getting into every state will keep you busy in the near term. But if I were to speak to you in a year, is there a statistic that you would hope to have changed, or a metric that you hope to have reached, or some sort of mile marker that you're envisioning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're really laser focused on cervical cancer right now, right? So there's plenty to address in women's health, but cervical cancer is huge. And, all women ages 25 to 65 are supposed to be screened. So we're really focused on making sure that happens. So I think for us, it would be metrics around making sure more women are screened. So I think just numbers of women screened is going to be something that we look at. I think just changing the conversation. Women often don't know what the pap smear is for. They just kind of know they're supposed to get one. They're not aware that it's a cervical cancer screening. So really kind of changing the way that we talk about that screening and making sure every woman knows that she's supposed to get screened for cervical cancer. I think just even having that be part of the conversation is going to be a huge thing for us. And I think it's something we can do and something we're already seeing, right? Like all of this coverage about Teal being at home, it's like there's this pain point, but there's this conversation that needs to be happening. And so I think those would be the two that we'd look to.
Well, we will have to have you back as Teal continues to grow and expand. But in the meantime, congratulations on the FDA approval and good luck with the rollout. We so appreciate your time and your insight today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks again for getting the word out about cervical cancer. Appreciate it.